Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to No Name Gaming. My name is Alex Light here at Racing Lights Productions, your home for sim racing. We are live at the virtual Kansas Speedway for the Online Motorsports Association's Virtual Racing Championship SportsSpeak.com 225. The drivers had the week off last week as we are halfway through the regular season. After spending back-to-back weeks at Atlanta, we traveled to the Midwest for a race in Kansas. This is a fast 1.5 mile oval that has plenty of racing lines through the corners. We've seen some intense racing at the intermediate oval so far this season, and we don't expect that to be any different here tonight. Look for the old Atlanta winner, Jolene Sim, to try and go back-to-back if she's able to make the race here tonight, as one of the fastest lines here at Kansas is the line that she mainly ran at Atlanta. Alongside me tonight to help me call this race is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Eddie Kalagian. Eddie, thank you for joining me up here in the booth tonight. Pleasure to have you back up here again.
Alex, appreciate it. Always love joining you here up at the booth. And I did just get official word. Jolene Sims will not be in the field tonight. She is not in the field. Basically, she was in mid-move and her new PC came today, but not able to get it hooked up in time for the race. She'll be back on track next week. But that really opens up the field. And as you said, the intermediate racing this season has been great. Charlotte, which I called with you, a thriller. It had like 5 overtimes. Both Atlanta races, new and old forms, new and old packages were both a lot of fun, and Sims won that race. So this kind of opens things up. But I think Kansas could be chaotic. I know some people might say, oh, it's a little bit wider of a track than, say, a Charlotte or an Atlanta. But you know who else realized that? The drivers. And that means they're going to be more daring to make it 2, 3, and 4 wide, which could create some chaos in these restarts. So I'm really excited to see how these drivers fan out. And again, you can go way down low below the apron on the tri-oval on the front stretch, or you can rock that high line like Jolene Sims. We're going to see a lot of different strategies. We're getting down to it this season. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really going to be an exciting race. Like you said, a lot of room to move the front stretch. You can use that apron down going across the tri-oval, and even around the corners. I mean, you can use all 3 lines are really viable here as opposed to some of the other intermediates that are on the NASCAR schedule in general. That's the one nice thing about here. You can run middle, high, low, and it's going to be really interesting too with the day to night transition. We're in the middle of sunset. The track's going to keep getting cooler. More and more grip is going to be on the track. It's going to be really exciting to see how this one plays out. While we're waiting for drivers to qualify, let's go take a look at the drivers' standings. So after last week, Tim Moore managed to hold on to his points lead. Jolene Sims made a massive jump up to second. And a lot of those guys that are pretty much between first and eighth have kind of been hanging out there. We've had drivers bounce around between 9, 12, and 13. Are there any surprises up here at this point? We're halfway through the regular season. Are there drivers that you think maybe can make a push to make it into that top 10, Eddie?
Well, I look at Tyler Glass not in the field tonight. He has a sub Victor Imbasciani, but going forwards, Tyler Glass has had a tendency throughout his VRC career to struggle at the start of the season, but then start to put things together. I think the same trend may be continuing here on iRacing. In 14th, he's still in a decent position to make a move up, only 30 points out. I also look at someone like a Brad Qualls in 15th place. He's been starting to improve his results. He's only 36 points below the cut line. There's a real opportunity for him to move up. In terms of the people above Alex, I'm really impressed with Jarrett Talmadge. Back in the series, former champion, someone who won in Atlanta in the plate package a few weeks ago, but Talmadge has had a really good season. Right now in 4th, prime chance to jump JoJo Sims, who's not in the field tonight, and get into the top 3 in points. So I'd really look for Talmadge. He's been my big surprise this season, Alex, but Glass and Qualls, 14th and 15th, 2 drivers below that cut line, big potential to maybe move up in the near future.
Yeah, and there's some names in here that are not here tonight. Like you mentioned, JoJo is one of them. Another driver not here that kind of surprised me is Isaac Shelley. He is not yet into the sim, so we'll see if he ends up making it before the grid. But he's currently 5th place, has had lots of really good opportunities, has gotten himself so close so many times, been in the top 3, top 5 throughout a lot of the season, and would really, I think, do well here tonight. But it's a shame he won't be here with us. But switching over to the team standings, nothing really, we didn't really get a change. I tried looking for the team standings, but it's all good. So this is the team standings going into Old Atlanta from last week. But there really hasn't been much shakeup in the team standings over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, there has not. McGuinness, though, is really shorthanded tonight. Even though they have 6 full-time drivers, 4th of July weekend, a lot of people are away. Shelley is one of those drivers. They only have 2 cars on track tonight. It's Min Hangs, who they signed a few races into the season after his win at Auto Club, and Victor Imbasciani. So this is an opportunity for OCM to really open up their gap up front. They've got Moore, Jua, Miniker, O'Connor, England. They're all here tonight. And Planet Sim Esports with Jarrett Talmadge have a chance to maybe jump up to second if Min Heng doesn't have the best run. So those are the 2 I'd really look out for. But right now, I think those 3 teams are the true class. And when McGuinness is at full strength, they're right there with OCM. But clearly, OCM Racing, the top team so far through the first 2 months of the season.
Now, before we get into the grid, we said we're halfway through the regular season. We actually have, just after today, 6 more races. So taking a look at next week's schedule, we're actually going back road course racing to Road America, then Indianapolis, Homestead, New Hampshire, Long Beach, and Vegas to round out the regular season. So a good mix of racing. I mean, you have the very famous rectangle of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You've got a very long Road America. You've got a street circuit in Long Beach, short track racing in New Hampshire. So there's a good mix of things here on the schedule that I think we could definitely see either for another first-time winner, or we could see some drivers, like you said, that need to make a push, like a Tyler Glass, maybe be able to do that here in the second half of the regular season.
That's true, Alex. And I also look at, besides Kansas, the only other cookie cutter before the playoffs is Vegas. So a team like OCM Racing, they've had the speed and the chance to win at both Charlotte and Atlanta, haven't been able to do it. So now is the time for them to really turn things around and take advantage of these races, because there's uncertainty coming up, especially when you look at that race at Long Beach.
Well, let's take a look now at the starting lineup here for tonight. Drew Jua takes the pole on the 4 car. You've got next to him Jonathan Amodio, a really good run from him. Best start of the season. In the second row, we've got Tim Moore, Jarrett Talmadge. Rounding at your top 5 is Jonathan West, and along him, Min Heng. In the 4th row, we've got Colin Teague and Victor Imbasciani. A really good run there for Victor. We'll see if he's going to be able to follow that up with the race finish. Then rounding out the top 10 in row 5, we got Kevin Yerguez and Fabricio Lamana. Going outside of the top 10 in row 6, we've got Ryan Miniker and Jordan Martin. Jordan Martin making his first start of the season. Then in row 7, we've got Kyle England and Andrew Miller. Going back to row 8, we've got Austin Mongold and Brad Quall Sr. And rounding out our field tonight, we've got Corey Rainey and Jimmy Amos. As we get ready to go green, one thing we do want to make note of, and I don't know if it's a trading paints thing or what's going on with it. When we see Min Heng's car, we actually can drop back to it. It's showing the 4 for some reason, but he is still the 2. So just it's a little side note there. He did not steal Drew's number just for this race, I guess. I don't know what's going on with that. We've tried talking with him, seeing what's going on with it, tried refreshing, trading paints. Nothing seemed to get it done. So yeah, we have 2 4s out on track. But as we get ready to go green, what are some things to look out for here at Kansas, Eddie?
Yeah, there's a few things that jump out to me. You know, you can go 2-3 wide. I talked about it. These cars can really spread out on these restarts. And I think teamwork is going to matter. These cars can draft. They were drafting a lot in practice and qualifying. So to me, those are the 2 biggest stories, being able to draft and just in general, how wide do you make your car? And you mentioned the day to night transition. That grip is not going to be there at the start of the race. How much will these guys test the limits?
Well, here we go. Pace car is off, and the field is in the hands of Drew Jua as we go green flag racing at Kansas Speedway. He's got teammate Tim Moore right behind him to get a phenomenal push, and they both get clear. The OCM boys are 1-2 going into turn number 1.
A great start by Drew Jua to now hook down to that bottom, and Tim Moore trying to clear down in front of, I believe, Jonathan Westwood. A great qualifying effort as he tries to jump up from below the cut line. As we see further back, teammates Imbasciani and Min Heng side by side. And they almost come together through 3 and 4, but up ahead it's going to be Jua leading the opening lap.
Yeah, early laps here, some very sketchy racing on these cold tires, especially around a track that carries so much speed like you have here at Kansas Speedway. You're going to these corners like 180, 190 miles an hour, depending if you're in the draft, and he makes contact with Kevin Yerguez. That is Victor Imbasciani almost turning the 1 car. What a save from Kevin Yerguez to keep that car straight.
Yeah, Victor Imbasciani had a rough night in the VHS, the secondary series. Last night ran into some drivers, got a penalty, so a lot of people probably not too happy with him that are on the track right now. And right there, got into Kevin, but a great save by that one car who's shown a lot of speed on these intermediates so far this season.
Now moving up further in the field, Jonathan Modio started on the first row, back to fourth place right now, but he's running that inside line. You can see trying to get that car all the way down to the bottom, and sometimes playing that bottom line here at Kansas is more of a long game rather than the trying to go for the speed on the top line. Like you see the majority of the field going, especially these guys up at the front, all of them running basically up against the wall, and he's trying to save those tires, that's for sure. It's not going to burn up as much on the bottom, but since we are going towards a night transition, it's not going to be too much on the tire, I would think, as the track temps are dropping from the 82 there was at the start of the race.
Yeah, but what I am noticing is right now there's just very little grip on the track. Jarrett Talmadge just went for quite the slide in 3 and 4, kept it in front of Hang and Amodio, but there's just a lot of moving around for these cars. Again, we expect that to change as the race goes on, but I think in these early laps here, it's a long race. I don't know how much they're going to push it. We're seeing everybody sort of migrating towards that high lane, not trying to make any crazy moves right now, simply trying to settle in and figure out how their car handles.
One thing to make a note of, taking a look here at Kevin Urguez, he was way back in the group behind, has made up a ton of time, is actually the fastest car on track right now by about 1/10 of a second. We'll see if he continues to find that pace, but right now, Jonathan Modio trying to find some room around Min Heng, but just can't seem to find that gap. But look at Urguez sending it into turn 1, makes up a ton of time and carries so much speed through those corners. He is running really, really well here early on.
Yeah, and Ohio River Racing at Kansas historically have run really well. Riley Goff won for them here back in season 5. I believe Parker Ness finished second for them in season 6. And last season, Chad Eastwan made a big run and almost beat Tim Moore late in the race here. So this is a team that knows this track well, and Kevin Urguez is trying to follow up his past teammates who have had success at this track and has driven right up to this first pack that now has 7 cars.
Now, one thing to keep an eye out as we go throughout the race, and we saw this last week with JoJo running that high line at Atlanta, those cars ran really tight as we got longer and longer into the run. We saw her really have to lift and try and force that car to keep it off the wall. So something to just keep an eye on as we go longer and longer into the run, because so many of these cars are running that high line. It's carrying a lot of speed, but will you be able to keep up that pace over the long run? Currently looking at the battle for 8th place, Colin Teague up ahead of both Kyle England and Victor Imbasciani. And I actually had the pleasure to watch Kyle England do a little bit of go-karting last night. We were both at the same karting place doing some rental kart racing, but really cool to be able to see him run. He ended up winning his class too, so congratulations to him. Hopefully his karting day went well today, but he's making a push here for P8.
Yeah, Kyle England, always a force on the go-kart tracks. He's always talked about it for the last few years, but he's also a force on the virtual track. And right now, as car gets up into the wall in front of him, Colin Teague scrapes it through 1 and 2. Doesn't look like too much body damage, but that's going to give England the spot, and it looks like the 12 of Imbasciani is going to follow through. So Colin Teague just pushed it a little too hard. Car got tight, ended up scraping that wall for a couple of seconds, and he falls back to 10th and almost washes up into it again off of 4.
Yeah, struggling a little bit here for the 51. Hopefully he can get it back under control as we're 10 laps in. He looks to be able to get a good hang on it. Swings it down low, trying to look to the inside of Imbasciani. Has an opportunity, but Victor should have that run. Goes for a very aggressive side draft. As you see Corey Rainey now peeking into view, trying to see if he can maybe jump up a spot or two as these two are fighting for now 9th place.
And I really think that was kind of an anomaly with Teague getting tight. You see these cars, especially when Imbasciani had Teague at his left rear. We saw him really start to bobble. These cars just are not stable right now the way it is. I think by lap 40, 50, that's going to change. Again, the tires will be more worn, but the sun will go down, and there will be more grip on the track, especially up high. But we saw Victor have a little bit of a wobble there. But if you look at the front, I am just so impressed with Drew and Tim. But you mentioned Jonathan West here in 5th place too, having a great start to this one. Someone who, again, we talked about below the cut line, trying to pick things up, trying to get some good runs in, and right now looking really good in that 79. Started 3rd, and he's hung up in the top 5 for the first 12 laps.
Yeah, he's been doing a really good job, and I gotta say, I mentioned this to you before the broadcast. His scheme today, the Mike's Hard Lemonade 79, looks so good. I don't know if he had that made or if he found it on Trading Paints. That's a beautiful car. But him and Jonathan Amodio both having a phenomenal race. They both ran pretty well last week at Atlanta. Amodio in particular was fighting really hard for even a top 5 spot there for a while. So it seems like they're both starting to make swings here as we get around the halfway point of the regular season. So I expect them to maybe continue that momentum, and tonight it's looking like it's no different. Like you said, West is in the 5th place, and we have a wreck further behind here. Not sure what it was. It doesn't look like anybody too damaged. Maybe Jordan Martin has some front end damage, but we'll go back and see what happened in the replay.
Yeah, it looked like there was a blinking car on the inside that may have the most damage of it. Didn't really see. I think Brad Qualls may have been caught up in it. We'll see the replay. There's already a car damaged blinking behind, and we see Jordan Martin in his debut filling in for Jared Newton down on the bottom here. Is he going to try to wash up? Ooh. Yes, he does, and he gets turned right up into the wall. So that's going to be some damage. Flipped by another car behind and then kept going. So nothing too severe.
No, just a little bit of nose damage. Shouldn't be anything too bad on the car. Should be able to just get that repaired. But one thing that we saw throughout was the 48 of Ryan Miniker having some connection issues, it looks like. But the 25, not too damaged. I think Jordan Martin will be able to get that all fixed up and shouldn't affect the car too much, maybe other than a tiny bit of aero. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. And you know, the 48, if you look at the front end, he's kind of bent up too. That was completely separate. He was smoking besides the whole blinking thing. So Miniker, it seems like, may have had some contact a couple of laps prior to that. And it looks like Victor Imbasciani has stayed out.
Actually, it's Jonathan Amodio. Amodio decides to stay out.
Correct, Amodio.
It looks like Ryan Miniker and Brad Qualls all electing to stay out of the pits here on our first caution, lap 15. It's seeming like most of these drivers maybe taking just fuel. Oh, no, that's what Ju was doing, at least. Looking a little bit further back, a lot of them taking fuel only, but Tim Moore, Jonathan West, and a couple others electing to take all 4 tires.
Yeah, we're going to see some differing strategies here. I feel I'm not that surprised. We're 15 laps in, and again, I don't know how many cautions we're going to get, especially in the early stages, so I think you can afford to do this, but I'm really interested to see how bad the tire fall off is on this restart for the cars who stayed out. Amodio, not so much. My question is more with Miniker and Qualls, because Miniker looked a little damaged. He and Qualls have been running outside the top 10. They were already off the pace, so this could be kind of a chaotic restart. Now, to me, I think the 7 could take full advantage of here, Alex. I mean, he's got 2 cars of buffer behind him. Maybe they slow them up, and maybe he can get away and get a little bit of a gap here.
Well, it looks like actually Miniker going into the pit, so that's going to take him back to the back of the field. Maybe he's just trying to work his way to the back in case he has more connection issues. That could be the case there. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan Amodio has been running really well. Don't be surprised if maybe he works with Brad Qualls, trying to see if he can get Brad to hold up the field a little bit and maybe give him some room. But I don't know. It's tough. The whole field's been running really close on pace. And yes, Kevin Yerguez was the fastest car on track there for a while. He still has the fastest lap. He was in the draft. He was in the tow, getting a lot of pace through that. So some of it, yes, he was running the line really well, but also was getting a little bit of help on the straights on top of that. So we'll see, though, what happens. I think Jonathan Amodio has a chance to be able to hold on to the lead. It's going to be tough, though, because Drew's not going to make it easy on him.
Yeah, Drew Jew's got a lot of speed. I also noticed in that first run that number 4 Public Chevy could really hook the bottom, which nobody else was really able to do. He was able to get off the top, get down low, and was able to get him a little separation from Tim Moore and that first pack in those laps before the caution came out. So I think that's something that he might be able to use to his advantage. I'm also wondering what kind of adjustments Tim Moore may have made beyond the 4 tires. He did lose a few spots. He's back in 8th place. Maybe he fine-tuned that car a little bit. And this is a big race for Tim Moore at this point. I mean, he's the points leader, but he hasn't won. And he keeps talking about how he just wants to win a race. This is someone who's won at Kansas twice before. He's won 2 VRC titles, but hasn't been able to get that elusive first win at iRacing yet. He's seen so many people do it, including 2 of his teammates. He wants to join that club. And I think this is a perfect track for him to do it. Again, he's won here twice before. He knows how to win, but Drew Jua is going to be his biggest competition. And over the last couple of seasons, and so far this year when it comes to winning races, Drew Jua's had his number.
Yeah, and he's been doing really, really well throughout these intermediates. He gets so close up to like top 3, sometimes even second. I mean, he was in the lead there for a little bit at Atlanta, just can't seem to be at the end when it counts. So we'll see if he can work that way. He's starting on 4 fresh tires. He is the furthest up on the full fresh tires. So we'll see if that's going to help him out as the others up in front of him on 15 lap old tires, or at least green flag lap tires. So it's going to be interesting to see the mix of strategies once we go green. But you've got Jonathan Amodio ready to lead us around to the first restart of the night.
Yeah, look out for Min Heng in 5th. He's never afraid to make a bold move on a restart. If Jua somehow slows up, see if he can maybe make a run, but they're coming down here, and it looks like we're going to go green for the second time tonight.
And here we go. Jonathan Modio leads the field around through the Geico restart zone. We are green flag racing yet again here at Kansas Speedway. And Drew Jua gets a pretty good jump there. It's going to be alongside Brad Qualls as they go into turn 1. And he gets a lot of speed riding that middle line. Will be able to pull up alongside Jonathan Modio on the outside line. It's going to be a drag race down into turn 3 as they are still side by side.
Yeah, behind them, really dicing it up. Colin Teague went way wide now up near the wall of those walls. Teague still stuck up there. 3 wide, and Jua able to hook the outside, take the lead away from Amodio, and look how low your Gleyes is going, along with Jonathan West. 4 wide.
They're 4 wide going into turn 1. Oh my gosh! That almost was disastrous. Kevin Yerguez drifted up a little bit, running tight, trying to make his entry. Still 3 wide as they go down the backstretch. And it looks like we're finally going to start to thin out a little bit. But look out, because Brad Quall is dropping through the field through the fresh tires now. But those fresh tires not going to be fast quite yet. It usually takes a couple laps for them to set in. And as we were seeing, some cars really struggling for pace off the start. So we'll see if that's going to pick up here in the next couple laps.
Well, that was something. That was crazy. But like I told you, Alex, off the beginning, the corners at Kansas are wider than Atlanta and Charlotte, and the drivers know that more than anyone. And we're going to see that more, especially as we get later into this race. When the grip gets better as the sun goes down, these drivers are going to be willing to make it 3 and right there 4 wide as Teague catches the wall again to try to make passes when you're bunched up together. Because we know, even though you can draft here, the dirty air with these next-gen cars makes it difficult to pass in the long run. As Teague again up into the wall, running this track like Darlington.
That's a very good point. He is running that track very much like Darlington. We're looking at Tim Moore catching teammate Kyle England there, giving a little bit of a push into turn 3. But going back to like the racing lines, I mean, you say you can take any position. We saw already cars, they're trying to push a 3-4 wide. And I definitely, as we go longer and longer, you're going to see that pace really start to dissipate into like the inside line. Who can run that inside line better? Who's running the middle better? And you're going to see a lot of those different passing opportunities. And that's when some of this strategy, I think, is going to start to play out. Because some of the strategy comes into tire saving. Running that high line, yes, it is faster. And we've been saying this all night. But as you go, you're going to start to see more cars struggle with it. Or like you're seeing, some cars maybe catching that dirty air, like maybe what the case is for Colin Teague and getting into the wall because that car pushes just so tight and dirty air. It does not want to turn. It fights you all the way through. But this is an interesting thing to see. We got 2 lines here, one on the inside, one on the outside, and it seems we are pretty much dead even as we go down the backstretch.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of a byproduct of the Atlanta race 3 weeks ago when we actually ran with the plate package, because it makes these drivers more willing and more comfortable with running side by side at tracks this narrow. And it's really, I think, having that on the schedule might actually enhance these 1.5 mile races without the plate package, because they are a little more comfortable and a little more confident running side by side. And we're really seeing that with that second pack and this pack right here. They'll start to single out at least a little bit. And one more thing I've noticed here, Alex, is Austin Mongold makes a pass on the inside of Andrew Miller. 3 spots back of that is Brad Quall. So we've been green for what, 7-8 laps? He has gone from 2nd to 17th. So he wasn't really able to hang up there. Jonathan Amodio, though, still hanging on in the top 3.
Yeah, you're definitely not really seeing as much of a difference as I would have expected with the tire wear. I mean, you see Tim Moore, he is up to 2nd place now on fresh tires, but Jonathan Amodio and Drew Jua, they didn't take tires. Jonathan Amodio stayed out. Yeah, he dropped back to 4th, but still, they're doing a phenomenal job staying up there. It's impressive to see, honestly, because you would think the fast tires, even though we ran 15 laps here, will definitely put some wear on these tires and slow you down, but they're doing a phenomenal job really running it. And Drew's even got himself a decent gap that Tim has to try and hunt down at this point. And now you're looking here back further through the field. We've got a wide mix of things. Some drivers came down, took fuel only. Some took 4 tires. One of those that took 4 tires was actually Ryan Miniker. And you're seeing he's making some good headway, getting ready to try and pass around Victor Imbasciani as we go through 3 and 4.
Yeah, we saw some damage on that car. We saw some connection issues in those first 15 laps, but Miniker has really recovered. And again, OCM is a deep team. He's pretty much the number 5 driver on that roster, and he's still having a good run. Eric O'Connor not in the field tonight, but OCM, such a talented squad as, boy, Amodio just got close, been hanging, he bounces off the wall.
Oh my, this is really tight 3 wide as they only managed to use half the track as they went into turn number 3. But it seems like Amodio now starting to feel some of that tire wear as we've been running green flag for about 10 laps now. As those tires came up to temp, it seems like they're fighting him a good bit as now he has dropped back to 9th place after hanging up there for just so long. And now taking a look back up at the front, we have a new race leader, that of the 69, Tim Moore.
Yeah, Tim Moore's going to slide right up. Drew Jua, the latest to have some blinking issues, but Moore there executed that run perfectly. The question is, can the 4 get back around him? These are the 2 drivers who have dominated this series. The last 5 seasons, the champion has been one of these 2. Drew 3 times, Tim twice. Tim the points leader right now, but Drew's the driver with 2 wins.
So taking a look at the top 4, really tight racing as they're all riding that top line real hard, trying to wait and see for an opportunity for the other. You take a look, though, throughout the guys that came down pit road, so they're all 4 up here, came down through the pit stop, and Kyle England kind of makes a sandwich of these guys that didn't take tires. Jordan Martin and Drew Jua elected to take fuel only, but Kyle England also took all 4 tires, so we're going to see if maybe he can work his way around the 2 here. But right now, I think he's just comfortable sitting where he's at. This is a great spot to be, 4th place. All he has to do is wait for a mistake, and he can try and pounce, but he's got to run here as he's going to push Drew Jua down the backstretch into turn 3 as he tries to work his way around Jordan Martin up into the 3rd place.
Yeah, that's going to get OCM 1, 2, 3. But how about Jordan Martin? I don't care how experienced you are on iRacing, to come into a league like this, brand new, where you've never raced with these guys, most of them before, and you show up and you're running 4th. This is an incredible performance, and he's subbing for Jared Newton, All Inner Spin Motorsports, who's below the cut line, looking to get him a great points day. And for Jordan Martin, trying to secure himself a good ride going forwards as you look further back here at this battle between Amodio and Imbasciani, as the 7 has now fallen back to 9th and is in danger of going back to 10th.
Still hold on to that top 10, though. Not a bad spot for Amodio. Just not probably what he would have liked after starting 2nd place at the beginning of the race and even leading there for a while. But you also see another driver that's kind of surprising to be back here, at least in my opinion, is Min Hang. He's been running really well throughout the whole season, finds himself in the top, I think it's 6 for points if I remember correctly. But he seems like he's just not as comfortable here because the pace just does not seem to be there, as opposed to some other tracks that we've seen like Auto Club and Charlotte, where he was running top 3 all race long in those races.
Yeah, and on that note, that's actually a very interesting point to bring up because Min Heng was another driver, wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it here tonight. And at 6:18, he said, if anyone else is racing, I'd appreciate any feedback about the track since my track time is limited. So very little practice this week, very little on-track time today. So I think that's part of the reason he's back here. He's trying to settle in. I'd expect Heng to be more in the mix in the second half of this one.
Yeah, still plenty of time to go in the race. We're running 150 laps here tonight. As a reminder, when we get to stage, we freeze the field, but we do not take out the caution flag. So our stage break this race will be at lap 75. But now we see Jonathan Amodio. He's been fighting Victor Imbasciani a good bit, but it seems like Amodio might be locking down the position as Imbasciani runs very tight there through the exit of 2. Gets into the wall a little bit, and that's going to allow Fabricio Lamana to make his way into the top 10. Another driver who last week was running really well, just got caught up in some of the calamity later on in the race.
Yeah, Fabico's someone who's got, I think, just like one top 10 in his VRC career to his credit, and he has not had a good start to this season, but he's been in the mix in both Atlanta races, new and old, and here moves into the top 10 and takes advantage of a Victor Imbasciani mistake. And now we're longer into this run than we were in the first one. So I'll be interested to see when the cars that took tires, especially the ones that took none or 2 versus 4, when that fall off really starts to become apparent, when they just start to lose control of their cars and who's really going to surge ahead. And right now, Tim Moore's got that lead over Kyle England, and it looks like Drew Jua has slipped back a little bit to P4.
Yeah, you've seen the effect of the tires really come through. You've got Kevin Urguez and Jonathan West. They have caught up to Drew Jua and Jordan Martin here as those two behind took the fresh tires. They decided to take all 4 at the pit stop. And you also see ahead of them, taking a look further ahead, Kyle England has gone. He is away from this group, about 2 seconds up the road, but then another second ahead of him is Tim Moore. So they have like checked out here. They're running their own race, just doing their thing at this point. But now if Kevin Urguez and Jonathan West can work their way around, I think they're going to find themselves probably doing the same if they haven't burnt their stuff up at this point.
And this is incredible with Jordan Martin again. This is someone who apparently, according to the Discord log, just joined the server less than 3 hours ago. So this is the definition of a rookie, and he is racing maybe the greatest driver in VRC history and just cleared him there. Little wiggle through the trioval, but he's back up into 3rd. And now we got side by side for 5th right behind Jua as Jonathan West makes a run to the bottom. Can he make it stick? That's the question. He's going to slide up a little bit, and it looks like Urguez may have the edge. No, it's going to be West who's going to surge ahead into 3.
Yeah, he gets a run. It looks like Urguez may have had to compensate the exit a little bit because the car ran tight. Because you saw, usually the outside line has that run, but you see, yeah, he has to really lift it looks like coming off the exit because he runs really close to that wall, and that's going to allow Jonathan West to maybe pull ahead here as we go through 1 and 2. If he can get a really clean run through these corners, should be able to hold on to that 5th spot pretty cleanly, and then see if he can work on Drew Jua. Yeah, he makes a very nice gap there. And that is a nice way to run that bottom line, especially as lights start to turn on and the sun goes down. You're going to see that bottom line maybe come in more and more throughout this race.
Yeah, I really think we're going to start seeing this, maybe even 3 grooves, because I think the middle, there's something to say about it. You can do that without completely committing to the top, and I think we might see some of these drivers who are running tighter setups that don't want to keep catching the wall might go with the middle lane. I know with these next-gen cars, little dings to the wall don't really cause as much damage as they would in the past, but you still don't really want to be doing that. And I think that even like middle high, which we just saw with Drew Jua, or what we're seeing this lane that the 79 just ran, you saw him through 3 go up to the top, and then about halfway through sort of diamond the turn, and then turn down to the bottom. I'll be curious to see right here what he does through 1 and 2, but this is interesting to see these different lanes that people are using. And of course you can dip down in the trioval as well, which Colin Teague just did, and again he's in the wall. I mean, every time we look at this 51, he's driving up into the wall.
Somehow he still keeps that car together though. I mean, you can hit the wall with these cars, like you said, they can take a bit of a beating, but after a while eventually the car does start to break. Not sure what they've got on that 51 car, but it's holding together really, really well. But you can see, like you were saying, multiple lines. You see Austin Mongold kind of running that like middle high line. You see Victor Imbasciani run that low line. But on the front stretch, right in that apron, one thing you have to be careful of, especially as we go longer in the run, once those tires get really worn out, they get really loose when they hit that transition. So something to really have to keep an eye on as we go further throughout the race. I would expect to see fewer and fewer drivers taking that apron just out of more keeping the car stable, trying to be comfortable in the car. But you're seeing some of these drivers really having issues now with keeping the car off the wall, and that just comes with it's gotten tight. You've got to try and maybe lift a little bit more on entry, carry a little bit more speed on exit. Big thing, like you hear a lot, especially in road racing, slow in, fast out. Same thing does sometimes apply here, just is all how you approach it. If you can focus on rotating the car mid-corner, it's going to help you out more in the long run. Rather than trying to just push the speed and try and keep the speed up, focus on the rotation, especially once the car's starting to run tight. See what you can do to adjust it. Can you force the rears to be used more? Try and burn more off the rears to get an equal balance and maybe get that car stabilized again. Got to find some different things you can do with your line to try and help your car out.
And you talked about being comfortable. I don't think any of these three cars, these three drivers, are comfortable with their cars that we've been zeroing in here. T keeps ending up in the wall, Mongol keeps ending up in the wall, and Victor and Bassiani somehow lost both spots to them. And now we're starting to see the repercussions of that. 28 laps into the run, Ryan Miniker pitted a lap ago. Next one in here, Kevin Urguez, and he's going to likely kick off the green flag cycle. Looks like Jordan Martin has also come into the pits, so we'll see how long people can push it. But the green flag cycle officially underway here on lap 45.
It's very interesting to see some of these drivers that came in under the caution come in already, maybe trying to see if they can set themselves up for the pit strategy longer in the run. That would be my guess, at least, because I mean, we ran, 15 laps green flag? These cars can go more than 30 laps on fuel. They could probably go 45 would be my guess, maybe 50 laps on fuel before they need to come down pit road. So not sure what the strategy call is there for Martin and Urguez. I can see from Modio and Miniker because they stayed out.
Yeah, my one thought is splitting things up, because remember halfway's at 75. Caution came out for the wreck at 15, so I guess this is sort of a split, but clearly this hasn't opened the floodgates. A lot of people, like you were saying, are probably going to push their cars to the limits. If they're driving well, if you took 4 tires, really no reason to pit right now, and I think we're going to see some guys staying out another 10 laps or so at least.
Taking a look ahead of the group we were just watching here, Jonathan West has made his way around Drew Jua, riding in 3rd place now, and he's trying to hold on. Drew's doing everything he can to try and make a pass, but it looks like Drew now electing to come down pit road himself. So maybe that was the catalyst. Maybe those couple cars coming down pit road is going to send everybody down pit road. But also you have to keep in mind, some of these drivers coming down did not take tires the last time they came down pit road. So maybe they're just feeling the car. They need something new, need to get the fresh set on, see if they can find some pace again. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens indeed. This is just an interesting mixed bag right now, and it really all started with the caution, because not everybody did the same thing yet. A couple cars stay out, a couple take no tires, some took 4. Just a varying mix, and just these drivers trying to figure out here what they can do, how long they can push these cars. There's another car who was really pushing Jonathan West. Min Hang hasn't had the best start to the race, expecting some adjustments on the 2/4, whatever you want to call them. I guess we'll call them the 3 because it's somewhere down the middle there, but both of the yellow and black cars, the Bumblebee schemes, into the pits as well.
We've got the front 7 still out on the track, so we'll see if they when they all decide to come down pit road. Take a look here. Tim Moore has made himself quite the gap, over 3 seconds now back to Kyle England, and that last lap was was about 2/10 faster than Kyle England, and Kyle England on top of Jarrett Talmadge was an extra 2/10 faster. So these guys up front, Kyle and Tim, are just burning the field right now. They are in the groove, they're in the zone. They are really feeling it right now, and we still have 100 laps to go, but it seems like Tim, knock on wood, we're not going to throw out the commentator's curse, but seems like he might be on pace to get his first win of the season.
Yeah, he is fully in control right now ever since Drew Jua's tires kind of went away. I think Drew's got the better short run car though, so I think this will still come down to how the strategy shakes out late in the race. If we get a late race yellow, against Charlotte, we thought Tim Moore might be the dominant car late in that race. What happens? We get quintuple overtime and JT Sipes wins his first race, so you never know.
Oh, look who caught back up to Drew Jua. Jonathan Amodio right on his bumper here through the green flag cycle. Now, one thing to make note of, Jonathan Amodio's tires have come to temp. You see Drew Jewett get a little bit of a wiggle there through turn 1. His tires still getting up there. He's only been out for 3 laps. He came in on lap, 5 laps. He came down on lap 47. Jonathan Amodio came down on lap 39. So we'll see if Drew's going to be able to build that gap or if Amodio is going to be able to keep up with him. But now we have the first 2 coming down pit road. So Kyle England, Tim Moore on down pit road. Right now it looks like going to assume the race lead once we go through pit cycles, depending on how everything plays out, will be Jordan Martin.
Yeah, shout out to Jordan Martin. Great job executing that strategy with Tim Moore running long and being able to surpass Drew Jua. And there goes Moore into the pits. So lap 53, that means he ran 38 laps. And yep, there goes Martin. So he's going to cycle around Victor and Rainey. I mean, they still have to pit. That's not really relevant in this. And it's going to be Jordan Martin in his debut for All Inner Spin Motorsports. That's a team that initially wanted to have 4 drivers. They only have 2 right now. I think they just found their 3rd.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. He is killing it out here. So if you're looking for a driver, they definitely should pick him up. But taking a look, I mean, throughout the field, he's the one that made a big difference. You see his gap is over a second back to Drew. And when he came into the pit stops, I believe he was behind Drew by a good bit. He had fallen off the pace when they did the pit stops.
Yeah, he definitely at least fallen off of Tim and Kyle England. I think him and Drew were about even when the pit stop happened, but he was well behind Tim and Kyle England. I don't really know what happened to Kyle England. I know he ran a little bit longer than Drew, but even still lost a decent amount of time. And Tim ended up behind him because of how long he ran. Now we'll see as this run goes on over the next 20 laps, how quickly Tim and Kyle England can recover with the newer tires. Tim is 4 seconds back of Jordan Martin right now. So we really have 3 completely different strategies here. You've got Martin and Chua who ran sort of in the middle. You had Jonathan Amodio who pitted early after his gamble at lap 15, and then England and Moore just behind, and then the 2 yellow and black cars in 6th and 7th of Jonathan West and Min Hang.
See, and that's the one thing, though. It comes down to strategy, trying to pick when you come down. And one thing that we've seen throughout the season from Tim Moore in particular is that he, for some reason, he likes to wait really, really late when it comes down to the green flag stops. He wants to be one of the last ones to come in. I don't know if he's trying to wait for a caution, maybe with the mix of tires coming out, or if it's trying to see if he can try and jump the field. But it just doesn't seem like that overcut that he's been going for a lot of the season has really benefited him, because he finds himself way off pace now. He has to build that all back up because he had about, I think a 2.5 lead to Kyle England when green flag stop started. And it was like another second back to Drew from there. But now we see Drew Jua assume the race lead over Jordan Martin. So a very quick swing there. He made up that second in no time flat.
Yeah, but Jordan Martin's still trying to hang on to the back bumper. But again, I just feel like Drew's car still rotates a little bit better. Martin's going to try to bend to the bottom, but you see the back end step out on him. Jua's just got, to me, the best handling car in this race, especially on the short run. In the long game, it might be Tim Moore, but in this situation, first few laps out of the pits, there is no car better here at Kansas Speedway than Drew Jua. As we see Amodio falling back now, the tire fall off has begun as he washes up and loses a spot to Min Hang, and all of a sudden Amodio's back to 7th as the lap car of Brad Qualls hangs the bottom.
Yeah, Amodio and Andrew Miller were the first ones to come on down pit road, so not a surprise to see him falling back here as a lot of the fresher tires starting to catch up with him. But he's got to try and figure out something to try and match that pace as best he can. He's going to find himself maybe dropping even further through the field. And that's something that we saw him struggle with through the first green flag run. Once the tires where it started to hit, it hit him hard. And he was struggling for pace a good bit. And even behind him, you can see here comes Jarrett Talmadge. He is ripping through the field as he is also on a fairly fresh set as he came down on lap 50.
Yeah, Talmadge right now pretty good. I would not count him out. He won the plate race at Atlanta. Obviously, I don't think OCM Racing wants to remember how that one ended very fondly, but Talmadge did get that win. And as I mentioned, he's 4th in points right now. He's going to pass Jolene Sims for 3rd, and now he's going to pass Jonathan Amodio for 7th on track.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job working that back up there. He was running, what, top 5 for most of the first half of the race, so we'll see if he can get his car back up there. He's got a while to go, though, to catch up to Min Hang, about 1 3/4 seconds, but he was running a little bit faster than Min Hang the past couple laps. He was running faster than him through the first stint, but we'll see if he can catch up with the rookie. Taking a look further ahead, Kyle England is up to 3rd place. Tim Moore is now up to 4th, and Tim Moore last lap actually ran the fastest lap of the race, overtook that position from Kyle England and Kevin Yerguez, who both had pretty quick laps, but Tim Moore is really finding his stride now, it seems to be. And even though he came in down pit road, found himself way behind, ooh, almost slipping on the apron there, it seems like he can make up that gap in no time.
It does. It does seem like that car's a little on edge right now, though. Kyle England, though, lap 54, when they cycled back, he was about 4 seconds back of the lead. He's now 1.8, so he sliced that in half in 7 laps as we see the 20 car of Andrew Miller get up into the wall here. He and Mongold battling for a top 10 spot, which would be the last points paying spot at halfway, but Kyle England is gaining, and he is now closing on 2nd place Jordan Martin.
And he's quickly getting up there, very, very close, right in striking distance. It looks like he's going to be able to make the pass, no problem, through 3 and 4, as it seems like Jordan Martin is just falling off here. He was doing a phenomenal job keeping up with Drew there for a while, and then the pace just fell out from underneath of him. You're going to see Tim Moore probably work his way around here heading into turns 1 and 2. But honestly, I think if Jordan's going to be able to hold on here, if he can stay in that top 5 for the stage at lap 75, that is a phenomenal win for him, especially coming in, like you said, his first race, coming in with a group that's been racing for half the regular season now. They've had some really good races, all know how they run with each other. You throw this stranger in, and he's competing for the win or top 5 spots. It's a phenomenal thing to see.
I'm just shocked. And I think now we have to give some credit to Jonathan Amodio with the way this is going. Kyle England and Tim Moore have essentially cut 3 seconds off of the lead that Drew Jua had in 10 laps. So they're cutting a second down basically every 3 laps right now.
Oh, no!
And Jonathan Amodio was not like that in cars in the wall. The 2 bumblebees come together, and Min Hang gets the worst of it.
I was nervous there as they were coming into 1 and 2. Min Hang hung really, really high going through the corner. Was going to be very aggressive there with the 79 car of Jonathan West, but the car just ran a bit too tight. And it stinks for Hang because he was doing a really good job. I mean, we mentioned through that first stint, you mentioned how he didn't get a ton of track time in, just the little maybe 10 minutes before qualifying, but really found some pace there. He was getting in the groove. Was one of the faster cars on track throughout this green flag run after the pit stops. But then that is going to be a huge setback. Probably going to use his faster pick because that right front looks to be dinged up a good bit.
Yeah, that was a decent hit for Hang. Someone who just can't keep it clean in these 1.5 mile races. We all know what happened between him and Jolene Sims at Charlotte. Let's see what happened here. Hang's kind of building up a run here on Jonathan West. He's going to get down because West, I may have scraped the wall, but I think he stayed off it. He just got out of the gas, and Hang's going to try to slide through. You already see that car is sliding up the track. Hang did not have enough space to make that move. Goes up into the wall. Really hard to fault either driver. I mean, West got up and had to get out of the gas. Hang was trying to make the move and slide by. We'll look at it a second time from
we'll
an
take
onboard.
a look at the nose from Min Hang. You can hear, gets a run. It sounds like he's trying to get on throttle, try and get around, like you said, trying to see if he can pull a little bit of a slide job on Jonathan West, but the problem was he entered the corner so shallow already, didn't really have the room to slide up like that.
Yeah, what we saw from the blimp cam, he was already drifting high up the track when he was getting past Jonathan West. And when you've got a car that's out of the gas and you're trying to clear them, who's on your outside, that's not a recipe for success. So while that's a move that he felt like he had to make, he didn't want to get slowed up by that 79. He ends up paying the price because, like you said, entered the corner a bit too shallow, didn't diamond it properly, and now he's got to use one of those fast repairs.
Well, it doesn't look like he's using that fast repair. Taking a look at the car, it seems like that right front still dinged up a little bit. Let's see if we can get a better view at this here. Trying to see if we can get a close-up of that 2-4 car. That's what we'll call it here. But that right front, like I said, took a good lick there against the wall. It seems like maybe now it is repaired. Maybe it didn't fix it at first. But I mean, that's a rough thing to have to use your fast repair this early, but now this shakes things up a lot because we had some guys really charging through the field. Tim Moore, Drew, Kyle England really pushing their way to try and pass Drew Jua, and Stage is just around the corner. We take all that strategy that we had, all that tire wear, the different paces, different runs and stuff like that, and we just hit the refresh button here. We're gonna have a sprint to lap 75. And I don't know about you, Eddie. I'm kind of expecting a little bit of calamity because some drivers are going to be really pushing for some good stage points.
I am too. And as fireworks are going off outside my window, the fireworks on the track are about to be explosive here over these next 5-6 laps. I told you I think Drew Jua has the fastest short run car, but I don't really know because I've been impressed with Jordan Martin. He was able to hang with Drew those first few laps. Can't count out Tim Moore. Kyle England was the fastest car on the track, it seemed like, right before that caution. So 5 laps, we're going to see some desperate drivers try to make some desperate moves. And again, I told you, these corners are wide, so people are going to push the limits on these restarts. And it looks like we're probably going to go green with 5 laps till halfway. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting run up to this stage break. Another one to keep in mind further back is Jonathan Modio. When we had the initial start and we had the first restart, did a phenomenal job keeping up there with the other drivers. So don't count him out either. He's been doing a phenomenal job throughout this race. And I don't expect him to hold back because, again, he's one of those drivers trying to push for those top 10 spots.
Yeah, he's going to be trying to get into the top 10. And you mentioned we're now 2 months into the season, not many races left, only 6 in the regular season after this one, so these points matter. This is the first season in the VRC where the top 10 get points at halfway. It used to just be the top 3 and then the top 5. There is much more of an opportunity, but now these points are weighed more heavily, they matter more, and drivers are going to be trying to go for every point they can get. With only 5 laps, there's going to be some aggression here. And Drew Jua choosing to take the top is interesting. He does have 2 teammates lined up on the inside. So how much of a break will Kyle England cut Drew Jua here? I assume he's going to let him down, but 5 laps, who knows what'll happen.
I don't know, it's going to be tough because Kyle England's one of those drivers trying to fight for a top 10 spot in the point standings. When we go green flag racing here with 5 to go up to the stage break. Drew Jua gets a huge jump. Jared Tallman's going to be side by side with Kyle England behind as we head into turn 1, 3 wide. And you see the 7 of Jonathan Modio trying to make a push, almost getting to the outside of Tim Moore, but you're going to see him fall back. 25, Jordan Martin gets loose. He slides down to the inside, is on the apron, recovers the car. Another car loose. I think it's 12 of Victor Bassiani.
Hey, he didn't hit the wall like Atlanta. Well, he dinged it a little, but...
Hey, it's a much better hit than what we saw at Atlanta. We're still green flag racing. They kept it in off the racing surface, so the yellow flag stays away. But we are really close racing up here at the front. Jared Talmadge fighting with Kyle England still, but you see Kyle England opting to go all the way to the bottom. The problem is, on these fresh tires, that bottom does not have the momentum on exits the same way the top does.
Yeah, now that the sun's gone down, there's more grip on the top. There's not much of a level playing field. But how about Talmadge getting up to second around a pair of OCM cars, and now is going to close right to the bumper of Jua with 3 laps till halfway.
And you can just see riding on the bumper here, Drew Jua, how close Jared Talmadge gets going throughout these corners. He is getting some really good runs. He's biding his time, waiting for an opportunity. You can just see he has the opportunity. He could send it down in the inside like you see Jonathan Amodio doing on any of these corners, but he's waiting for that perfect opportunity. He's setting up the move because he doesn't want to cost himself to lose that. Try and maybe ride that momentum through 3 and 4 would be my guess, coming around to the green and white checkered flag.
Yeah, I think right now, Talmadge just has to try to set himself up so he can make a little slingshot move. Doesn't have any pressure from behind, so it's going to be all on him to close to the back bumper and make that move. He's going to tuck in for now. Didn't want to make the desperate move. I think he's going to give it one shot on the white flag, but if he can't get there, I think he'll fully settle for the 9 points in second. We'll see what happens. Mile and a half to go.
Yeah, last lap here of the stage. We'll see, will Jared Talmadge make that move? He's had opportunities. Oh, and a slide. That could be his moment.
Wiggled. He's going to have the run here off of 2. Is he going to
go to the inside? He's going to be right up against. He is bump drafting into turns 3 and 4 on Drew Jua. Drew protects the inside. Talmadge on the outside. You got Tim Moore back there as well, looking to get around Jared Talmadge. He's going to have the run on the exit of turn 4, but it's not going to be enough. Drew Jua takes the stage win. Jared Talmadge second. Tim Moore third. In 4th, Kyle England 5th. Jonathan Amodio.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If this was 75 laps later, I think Talmadge would have put in the bumper to Drew Jua for that win. For halfway, not going to do it. That was one heck of a job by Jua to recover, defend the bottom, and then get back up to the top to block a run from Talmadge. That was cool to see.
Oh, look out, Minhang getting really close. Conti, he makes contact again and is in the wall a second time and hits the safer barrier. That's going to maybe cause some damage that we can't see. Don't know. It's kind of hard to tell there, but Minhang is running really aggressively now, trying to find that pace. He has the ability to get there. Just, I think, he's pushing the car too much.
Yeah, Minhang fans, I'm sorry. This has not been an ideal first 75 laps. You've already used a fast repair. Min doesn't even have the right number on his car right now. It's not fun sights for the Minhang club.
Yeah, he is struggling here tonight. Finds himself outside of the top 10. And I think other than DNFs, he hasn't had a finish outside of the top 10. But we'll see if he's going to be able to recover that. Still plenty of race to go as we're just over halfway. But a good battle here brewing right now for 6th place, And Andrew Miller slides. Oh. He's going to go down to the apron. Saves it. What a save. So we are still green flag racing.
These guys have made some ridiculous saves early in this race, and that was the latest. Miller had that car all but lost in the worst part of the track as Urguez gets set to make a move on Jonathan West. And while we were paying attention to the theatrics back here, remember I told you, Drew's got a short run car. Immediately after winning halfway, he drops back 2 spots. Talmadge goes by, Tim Moore goes by, England passed him for a second and then lost 3rd, but Jua loses the lead after getting the 10 points.
Yeah, but part of me wonders how much of that is a strategy call from OCM, trying to see if, say, hey, Drew needs to get the points. He needs to get back up towards the front because he missed a race, had a bad race at Old Atlanta. And so trying to see if he can work his way back up towards the front of the point standings, get him that stage win. I would think it'd be a strategy call, maybe trying to hold back here a little bit because, like we said, he has that great short run pace, but not as much long run. Maybe he's trying to preserve tires a little bit now once he got those stage points.
Yeah, and right now, I don't really know how much he pushed them in those 5 laps. We've seen the tire fall off is pretty fast. I think we're going to see these guys losing grip on this run much more than the last 2 because those last 5 laps, you were going 110%. And again, if Minhang can just keep that car out of the wall, he'd be having a good day. He's got so much speed, even with the fast repair, even with probably a little bit of damage right now. Just got around Kevin Urguez is back up into 8th place. That's a top 5 car, but right now, the execution just isn't there.
Yeah, and he's gaining on the guys in front. He's been running it really, really well. And that's the one thing. He's been really strong in these intermediate ovals. But it comes down to sometimes, I think, the aggressiveness has been partially his downfall throughout this season. When it comes to getting really strong finishes, but it also has been his benefit. We saw Auto Club, he ran really aggressive, really strong, and it paid out for him because he managed to get his first win in the VRC. So we'll see, though. There's still plenty of time. We've had cautions come out just from cars getting loose. or some cars getting into each other. So all he needs is a caution. He's right back up there, maybe fighting for the lead, because it seems like he's starting to figure this track out.
Speaking of people figuring out this track, the 51 of Colin Teague, now the highest running Ohio River Racing entry, up into 6th. This is someone who, as Minhang hits the wall, that's what Colin Teague was doing the first 30 laps. Every time we cut to him, he was up against the safer barrier, and right now has been able to arc the car a little better, still running that high lane, but not banking it up against the wall as much, and right now has more speed and is using it to his advantage.
Yeah, he's been doing a really good job staying in front of Jonathan West, a driver who's been pretty quick here tonight. And it's funny, as you were saying that, he dinked the wall, but he, like you said, he has been doing a much better job, and I think part of it helps with it as the track is cooling down. The sun has pretty much gone down at this point. The track has a lot more grip, and you can rip that top line a lot easier than you can the bottom. But it's still interesting to see them. We have some drivers opting for the far bottom, some opting for the... It's almost like a Darlington line running that top wall, but then there's nobody in the middle. Nobody's been like comfortable running that middle lane. It's just odd to see that we're using 2 out of the 3 lanes that really can be running this track.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe it'll get worked in a little more as we get later into the race, but right now we're seeing this top, and it looks like Drew Jua is trying to run a little lower than those other cars. If anybody is close to running the middle, it's the 4. I talked about it earlier in the race. Jua was running a little bit of a different lane when everybody was running the high lane. I think he's the only one who has a car right now that can rotate down. See how he just tucks it in? He's not necessarily, as Tim Moore gets up into the wall, he's not necessarily running the middle, but he's definitely not in the high lane. He's going high middle, towing between the 2. And right now it's working out because he's battled back, and now he's going to dive down on the bottom to try to take advantage of his teammate and slide into 2nd.
Yeah, going to throw that slider on Tim Moore. Beautiful execution on the slide job. And he's going to find himself back up to 2nd place. But also, I mean, you talked about how he was riding that high line, kind of dipping underneath Tim a little bit. Part of me wonders how much of that is he looking for clean air, because like we've said before, these cars run really poor in the dirty air. They get so much understeer, they run so tight to the corners, and when you're running that wall so close, a little bit of tight is going to find you up in the wall, like we saw with Tim there just a moment ago. And while it doesn't slow you down a ton as long as you don't stick to the wall, it still is going to slow you down, possibly give you some damage if you keep hitting it enough. So you never know. Sometimes the dirty air is kind of what he's looking for too. You can see right here too, he's looking a little underneath Talmadge, doesn't want to quite run all the way up above the seam. He's kind of riding on that second to top seam there.
Yeah, but my real question here is, if it's paying off for Jua, all right, why is nobody else doing this? When they get to the back bumper, they kind of just stay there or go to the bottom and lose time. Now Drew Jua waits to get to the bumper, gets to the bottom, and makes the move and takes the lead. That is one sick move by Drew Jua. And how about 20 laps into this run, Alex? The top 5 still within 0.6 of a second of each other. Yeah,
they've been running phenomenally. Another driver, like we were talking earlier in the race, who didn't have great long runs, but Jonathan Modio seems to have figured it out here, because we've been green flag racing for about 20 laps now, and he's one of those drivers that's been hanging up here in the top 5. He has been doing a phenomenal job getting that car to the speed that he needs to, that he showed in the short run, that he showed in qualifying. It's great to see this from the 7 car.
Yeah, and essentially got himself that track position with the strategy call on the first yellow back at lap 16, opting to stay out, took the lead, and remained in the top 5 for quite a while, and has not fallen out of the top 10 since then when on pit sequence. So right now, Amodio, with the level playing field, everybody pitting at the same time, has hung on well, and that 7 car is driving really well up in the top 5, and that's a nice looking Oreo scheme that he's got on that number 7 as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking car. It's really nice for a night race. It just kind of like fits the night vibes really, really nicely. But you can see Tim Moore dropping back a little bit here. Interesting to see him giving up a little bit of pace to the 7 car. But these cars seem to be just riding the groove. Nobody wants to be too aggressive right now, trying to play the long game rather than a short game. Seems like Drew may be opening up a little bit as he's gapped by about a 1/10 or so each lap since he's taken the lead, and is continuing to grow that lead just little by little over Jarrett Talmadge. But even further back, we've got another pack. It's kind of like a pack growing here with Austin Mongold, Jonathan West, Kevin Yerguez, and Min Hang. They are all very, very tight.
Yeah, and we saw Min Heng starting to make some moves, but he just keeps catching that wall. And this is really the wall riding pack. Everybody ends up catching it. We've seen West, we've seen Mongold in the wall multiple times. We know what's gone on with Min Heng as well. And this is just not a good day for McGuinness Motorsports. We mentioned only 2 cars on the track, and their highest runner is Heng back in 10th. So when you look at the owner points, now Heng gets to 9th as Urguez with a little mistake. This could be a prime chance for OCM and also Planet Sim to really open things up, and maybe Planet Sim to jump McGuinness potentially for 2nd place in owner standings heading into Road America.
That would be huge considering the fact that McGuinness Motorsports has been running pretty much neck and neck with OCM Racing all season long. But I mean, that's just a matter of fact that we have these races around holiday weekends. It's really tough because some people travel, and I mean, unfortunately, not everybody's able to take their rigs with them. Or you have the case of like JoJo, where she's moving, tries to get everything set up, and she was looking promising, and then just was unable to get everything ready in time. But you see Kevin Urguez has fallen back a little bit here, but you still have a couple of them up there just pulling away with it. Colin Teague, you mentioned him earlier. He was struggling through that first stint, but that 51 car is leading the charge here in 6th place, the leader of this group, and he has been doing a phenomenal job basically painting the wall without making contact with it every corner. You can see just how close he gets to that outside wall.
Yeah, he sure does. He has not changed the lane one bit. Kudos to him for not being fearful of going up towards the top and trying to Larson line it. But we see that little pocket of a gap now. He doesn't go as high as he was earlier in the race. 3 and 4, he drifts a little closer to the wall than 1 and 2, but he's leaving the gap. The car is driving better where he doesn't catch it as much. And of course, just as I say that, he drives right into the wall. But you know what? Everybody's hitting the wall. It doesn't matter. Colin Teague is still running in 6th.
Well, it's really funny because the last time that we talked about him doing a better job keeping the car off the wall, he hit the wall while we were talking about it. So it's like he knows he's listening to the broadcast maybe while he's on track. But you can see just right behind too, like Austin Mongol doing a really good job trying to see if he can find a lane. But the way Colin Teague is running it, he's able to get in. Yeah, he's a little bit slower on entry here, you can see. But the way he runs the mid corner, he's able to rotate that car, get that exit speed. But Mongold had a phenomenal exit there. And Tim Moore, what happened to him? He is on the apron.
Something went wrong for the 69 in a big way on lap 96. Let's see what happened here. He was running up in 3rd place in front of Amodio and England. He had a pocket. He was behind Talmadge. He was falling back a little bit. And he goes down to the bottom. Don't really see if there's anything specific. And then that car just,
did he miss?
Man.
I think he might have been trying to go down pits. Is the way he was slowing down.
I think so, but he was carrying way too much speed through 3 and 4 to be able to do that, and he's still staying out, so I don't know what happened. But
I don't know, but you take
Moore,
a look at that right rear. It has quite the beating on it there. It's crumbled a good bit due to that hit he took from Kyle England, and I wonder, taking a look here at Kyle England, it's hard to tell. It doesn't look like that left front has much, if any, damage.
Yeah, cosmetically it looks like Tim Moore took the brunt of it, but a hit to the front for Kyle England in terms of downforce and just overall handling you worry about. So a near disaster for OCM as Tim Moore, I don't know what happened to him, may have been trying to pit, may have had some sort of other issue, but he goes from 3rd to 8th and nearly ends his teammate Kyle England's day.
I'm sure Tim and Kyle both had flashbacks to the New Atlanta finish when that happened. Because, I mean, if you recall, the way Tim and I believe it was Eric were running, Tim tried to go for the win, ends up getting collected with Eric, and they take Kyle England out with them, ruining an OCM 1, 2, 3. But, yeah, Tim Moore's still out on track, maybe coming down pit road now, but a couple cars electing to come down pit road already, one of those being Jonathan Amodio. We've also got Kevin Urguez and Andrew Miller all opting to come down pit road.
Yeah, that run, the last time we had a green flag run was Tim Moore went 39 laps, which was the longest that anybody went, as it looks like Min Heng goes to the pits in the 4/2. So this race restarted on lap 70. So by that logic, 30 laps was when we saw people start to pit. Drew Jua pitted around lap about 37 laps into the run. Tim Moore was the last one, 39 into the run. So I think between now and about 106, 107 is where we're going to see most of the field come down for a green flag stop.
We'll have to see who all elects to come down. Now it becomes a game of strategy for the guys up at the front. Do you go early? We saw Drew go pretty early in the run, and it seemed to play out for him very well. Jared Talmadge, one of those drivers that elected to stay out longer, as well as Kyle England, and they were making their way up through the field, but then that caution came out, and that kind of threw them off a good bit there because they were gaining a good bit of time on the field. But we'll see how strategies all go. Right now, the top 7 on the lead lap, and they're the ones that have not come down pit road yet.
My one question, if this goes green, remember we pitted at lap 70. If you go to 110, you could maybe split it on one stop. I don't know if these guys that are already pitted here are going to be in a position, especially with their tires, to be able to go 50 laps. So this could be a potential strategy consideration too. And I look at not just Jua and Talmadge, but maybe a Kyle England, maybe a Mongold or a West. They've been tucked into packs. They've been running up at the top. They haven't been pushing their tires all that hard. They've been able to let off the gas a little bit too. Not really maybe giving their 100%, maybe setting themselves up for the long haul here if we do go green, a situation where maybe they could one stop it and others who are already pitted might have to go 2, as Austin Mongold again up into the wall and he loses a spot.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if we have anybody try and stretch it. Drew's coming down pit road. That means Talmadge is going to stay out. And Talmadge, like you said, one of those drivers to stay it out longer than the others. And let's hop on board here, take a lap around him, and take a listen. See if he's lifting, if he's clutching, what he's doing with the engine. It doesn't seem like he is clutching, maybe a little bit as he comes around, because you can hear he's much off throttle around the corners. Yeah, it seems like he's clutching as he goes around, but he's actually coming down pit road, it looks like.
Yeah, so he's going to pit here. So it's just England and Tim Moore still on track at the moment, and Kyle England's going to come down. So now you have Tim Moore and his Phantom losing 18 seconds. Maybe he was trying to pit, but it was like 10 laps ago, so who knows at this point as he goes low. And he's going to stay out again. So we're going to get to lap 106.
I think he's just looking for a caution at this point.
Yeah, I think whatever happened was not intended. I don't really think he was trying to pit. I think he had some sort of mechanical issue, maybe something with his rig or something that cost him those 10, 15 seconds. He'll probably tell us maybe post-race, but I think right now he's just going to go sort of rogue, off strategy, hope he can pull something. He pushed it the longest of anybody last time, and he's still out here right now, and he's going to take another lap to the line.
What's going to be interesting is my question is drivers like here, the 7, Jonathan Amodio, came down on lap 96. That is 7 laps earlier than Jared Talmadge and Drew Jua came down pit road. Now, I could see those two stretching it out to the end as long as things work their way. It's a big stretch. It's 45 laps, but might be able to make it. I don't think there's a way he's going to be able to make 55 laps on fuel, just the way that the pit cycle has been going.
Yeah, and you also have to remember, when they had the green flag cycle around lap 50, how quickly the guys who pitted later caught the short pitters before the caution at lap 68. I mean, we saw in 10 laps like a 4-second difference between Jua and Martin, who had pitted earlier, and Moore and England, who were the last two to come down pit road. So while Jonathan Amodio has this big gap of 5 seconds over the 4 right now, I don't really see this as something that's sustainable. But the thing that's really interesting to me is the fact that Tim Moore has made it this long on track, coming to lap 108 in the number 69 without coming down to pit road, and is going to be in a situation where he could end up splitting this between the restart at 70 and the end of the race at 150 as he finally comes to the pits here, coming to 108.
And Kevin Yerguay is really struggling out here as he keeps hitting the wall through the corners, trying to maintain that pace to keep up with Min Hang, but Min Hang works his way around. But yeah, Tim coming down pit road, so he came down a whole, I think, 4 laps later than the rest of the field. So that, I mean, could that be the difference? We'll have to wait and see. but he is going to be way off pace due to, it seemed like listening to the radio, he did try coming down pit road that first time, which would have been a really early stop. So not sure what the call was on that, but regardless, he's almost all but taking himself out of contention for the win unless we get a caution.
Yeah, or unless these guys that just pitted can't make it and he can. If there's one driver who's pretty confident, then they came to pit road at that caution at the end of lap 67. He just pitted here at the end of lap 108, which would mean he'd only have to go one more lap on the second run than this first run to make it, which is completely different than anybody else on the track. So that's the one sort of favorable aspect that he has to his credit right now. Obviously, the track position's not ideal. A caution probably would help in the long run because he's got a top 5 car and not the top 5 track position. But for the 69, I don't think it's completely out of the realm that he goes from here, and other drivers who pitted at, say, 104, 105 don't have that same luxury.
Yeah, the one thing, though, about the 69 is he finds himself a lap down. Now, he is in the lucky dog spot. He's got the race leader, Jonathan Amodio, right in front of him. But still, finding yourself a lap down, not the best spot to be in when you're trying to work your way back up for the win. But again, he's got the freshest tires. He's on the what could be the winning strategy, as we're saying. It looks like he got that damage repaired while he was in pit road. He did have a slightly longer stop. No, sorry, that was Colin Teague that had a slightly longer stop. But Tim Moore managed to get that damage repaired, so obviously it wasn't really affecting him too much if they got it repaired in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty quick repair. I don't think it was too bad. I think it was more body damage than anything else because it looked like England just barely grazed him. I think it just got the fender a little bit. We saw it really bent out, but I don't think that could have been much worse. I seriously think OCM really dodged a bullet there. England lost about 2 seconds on a little repair in the pits, it looks like, and Tim Moore maybe a couple of seconds as well, but that could have been much more catastrophic, and it just didn't end up happening. And we mentioned how quickly these cars can catch. Jonathan Modio was up by 5 seconds on Drew Jua 7 laps ago. It is down to less than 3 seconds. Drew Jua has cut the deficit almost in half in 7 laps.
Yeah, Drew running about a half second faster that last lap than Jonathan Amodio. You even see here in the lap times between the two just how much faster Drew is right now. I think part of the thing that we're seeing from Amodio, yes, he has a good car. He's got good pace, but I think part of the thing that he's struggling with is, yeah, the tires starting to dip a little bit, but they shouldn't be dipping this much. When he was racing in that pack, I think he was able to focus on not pushing himself. When you're in open space, he's trying to maintain that gap, maybe trying to build that gap, and is maybe pushing the car a little too much, and that's what's causing him to slow down because he's pushing too hard on the car.
Yeah, and you've also got that draft when you're in a pack. I think it's pretty obvious we can make the conclusion here at Kansas. The tire fall off is much worse when the field is spread out. It's been much more apparent on these 2 long green flag runs than in the shorter spurts, like that 15 lap separation we saw after the early caution, where Amodio was able to really kind of cruise in that group because they were all together, and again, didn't have to push his car 100%, was able to lift a lot, and had a lot of drafting help, and as long as he could hang on to some grip, he didn't have to carry as much speed, let the car sort of carry him in front of him, and he was in a good spot. And now what also doesn't help him is he's stuck in the dirty air of Tim Moore. Now Moore obviously much faster, pitted more than 15 laps after him, but that has allowed Drew Jua to get right there and gain like a second more, and he's less than a lap away from making a move for the lead.
Yeah, I could even see him making this move here through 3 and 4, but he takes the high line. He's going to try and drop low. Amodio is going to follow that line as well. Isn't going to give up too much of a fight. It's honestly probably in his best interest to just let Drew by, to Drew back up to the lead, so the Ford car back up to the front yet again. Now keep an eye out for the 16 of Jared Talmadge as he is working his way around. You can see he's got about a 2-second gap to catch up to Amodio, but you can already see Amodio falling back. He's a half second behind Drew. So Drew's just got that pace. We said he's one of the fastest short run cars on the track. But don't count Jarrett Talmadge out. We've been talking to him a little bit here tonight. Last lap was slightly faster than Drew, but Drew also had to work his way around Amodio. but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jarrett make his way up and try and fight for the lead.
Yeah, at this point right now, I think if this race goes green, it's between 3 people, Drew and Jarrett, and then if Tim somehow is able to push the limits all the way to the end of the race, because Kyle England has lost time. He's lost a second on the lead. He just doesn't really seem to have that same pace ever since his tangle with Tim Moore. I don't really think there's anybody else behind them that can contend and keep it out of the wall consistently. So Jarrett, though, is closing on Drew Jewell. Remember, he pitted after the 4. It was about a 3.5-second gap when they came out of the pits. It's down to 2 seconds. So little by little, he is closing just a bit on Drew Jewell. And I think as this run goes on, he's going to have more of a chance, especially once he gets clear of Amodio.
Well, the one thing that I've really liked out of the 16 cars, he's been really good on that long run pace. He's been much better on the long run than Drew Jewell. So we'll see if he's going to be able to make that gap. Right now, you're looking at the battle for 6th place, Jonathan West, Min Hang, and Kevin Yerguez. But Yerguez seems to have fallen off a little bit. But Jonathan West has been running really well and is actually starting to pull away here as he made that pass on Kevin Yerguez about 2 laps ago.
Yeah, he's starting to work his way towards the front. Got around Yerguez, as you mentioned. Yerguez is starting to fade back a little bit. It seems like the handling isn't as good on that car in the second half of the race. But there are some impressive runs today. Again, we're missing some key drivers. No Eric O'Connor, no Jolene Sims, JT Sipes, Mike Shelley, none of them in the field. But that's really given some other drivers the chance to shine. Jonathan West is one of those. Consistently top 8 all day. He's running P6. Austin Mongold not too far behind, currently running in the 8th position. Andrew Miller in the top 10. A lot of good stories here on track.
Well, another one of those good stories that we haven't talked too much about is the 35 car, Kyle England. Yeah, he had a great run through the first long green flag run, but he still is keeping up there. He's in 4th place, still getting some good run out of that car. And this, I believe, would be tied for his best finish of the season because he has just missed out on the podium on a couple occasions now.
Yeah, and Kyle England needs these finishes. We talked about it during the Charlotte race. His VRC career has been frustrating because he has missed the playoffs by 10 or fewer points twice in the last 3 seasons. He's been right there, and it's really been one mistake in one race that's cost him a shot at competing for a championship. And this year he's been really consistent. Of course, he's had the best teammates in the business to work with to help him develop as a driver. He's even better on iRacing than he was on NASCAR Heat. And races like this are really helping him solidify his opportunity to compete for a title when the playoffs start in late August.
Well, the way he's running right now, we'll be able to catch Jonathan Amodio because Amodio dropping back. He was about a half second faster than him last lap, and is looking to continue that as we see Amodio just dropping back further and further. While you see Kyle England just staying nice and steady. Another driver that we saw slowly work his way through the field and now seems to have just really settled in is Min Hang. He's sitting in 5th place right now. And for not really getting a lot of seat time here at Kansas, really impressive to see him running in 5th place because this is not an easy track to just hop in the car and go.
Yeah, for basically no practice coming in, no practice all week, having to waste his fast repair on lap 66 after a misjudgment and a wreck with Jonathan West, after banging into the wall many times, to be running in 5th with 25 laps to go. You gotta be happy if you're Min Hang right now. This has not been a good race for him. He has really had to gut it out. He's been challenged all race long. He's had a lot of mistakes on his end. He's had a lot of things just not go right. So the fact that he's running in 5th place, I'd take that if I was a Min Hang fan.
Yeah, it's definitely a good finish for him, given all the circumstances he's had to try and overcome here today. And honestly, it will keep him in a good spot in the driver standings. It'll keep him up towards that top 5. But taking a look through the field now, so we've pretty much settled in everywhere. No battles going on right now on track. So Drew is your race leader. Jarrett Talmadge, while he was gaining for a while, seems to have fallen off from the 4 car. That gap went from about 2 seconds back to almost 3 1/3 now. Then you have Jonathan Amodio, and he's back in 3rd place, holding on to that podium, seeing if he can hold on against Kyle England, who's in 4th, and like we said, Min Hang rounds out 5th. A couple other drivers before we get into the first lap car. You've got Jonathan West in 6th, Austin Mongold riding around in 7th, and then Colin Teague. You got to go a little bit further back here, but he has been running really, really well considering how much he was fighting the car in the beginning of the race. He is in 8th place. He rounds out the lead lap cars.
Yeah, he sure does, and this has been a good bounce back for Colin Teague, especially since Kevin Urguez has fallen out of the mix. He pitted a few laps ago, must have hit the wall. He is 2 laps down now in 12th, so Teague really holding down the fort for Ohio River Racing. But one team that just never gets talked about, yet is having a really good day today, is Gavin Hudspeth Racing with Amodio and Mongold. They also have Corey Rainey subbing for James Mendez. He's one of the cars out of the race. Jordan Martin, by the way, also out of the race in 17th. He was having a great run in the first half in his debut. Definitely turned some heads. Maybe he'll get a full-time ride. But Amodio and Mongold for Gavin Hudspeth Racing, this is a team that historically has really struggled at the VRC level. So to put together a race like this, even though Amodio just dropped down to 4th, the fact that he's in 4th, Mongold's in 7th, and he's got a big buffer back to Minhang, more than 4 seconds right now. Amodio right now in a good position to get a top 5 finish. Mongold in good position to get a top 10. You got to take that if you're GHR.
Sorry, I got fireworks shooting outside my window here. Like
Same thing here. Same thing here.
It's
4th of July weekend.
Wasn't expecting it because the community fireworks were last night. They must be somebody over on the street shooting off the fireworks. But like expected, pit stops are happening. Jared Talmadge down pit road, Jonathan Amodio down pit road, and Austin Mongold coming down pit road. I would expect these to be a splash and dash. No need to take tires because we're still about 20 laps to go to the end. But it looks like, yeah, actually, Amodio and Talmadge taking all 4s. So maybe that's the call here. Come down, take a full set, and then run it back out. But we'll have to see. Is Drew Jua and Kyle England, are they going to stay out as long as they can and then just do a quick splash? Is that going to be what Tim Moore does? It's going to be really interesting to see what the strategies are here as we're less than 20 to go.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by this for Talmadge. Remember, he pitted a lap after Jua and then stopped catching him, and he pits before him. So that was a short spurt on those tires for Talmadge. I believe 26 laps was the length, and Drew Jua is going to pit a lap after him, and now we'll see what the 4 does. Does he take the 4 tires? The fall off is quick, but we're down under 20 to go as Minhang makes his way off pit road. And a lot of drivers starting to make those stops. Austin Mongold came down pit road. The 20 of Andrew Miller was in the pits. And Jua on pit road right now as Kyle England goes to the lead, and tires are being taken by the 4.
Yeah, one thing to make note of, Minhang elected to take just 2 tires. He did not take a full set. So that's going to be interesting. He found himself about 6 seconds worth of pace. And so we'll see how that's going to benefit him. But we have more drivers coming down pit road. Jonathan West assumed the race lead there for a moment if he would have stayed out. But Kyle England, still your race leader as he comes down pit road. But here comes Tim Moore and Colin Teague. Colin Teague to the race lead for the first time tonight.
Yeah, Colin Teague is not going to be able to take it too much longer. I think he's going to come down pit road in the next couple of laps. He's got a teammate in Kevin Urguez who's about to come by and is much quicker because he had pitted. I believe he had contact with the wall, which is why he ended up pitting a little early and lost 2 laps in that cycle. Now he's gotten his way back to the lead lap. That might not stay very long when things cycle back around, but we see him coming down and Tim Moore cycling to the lead. So this is the real question. I mentioned it. He pitted the end of 67, the end of 108. That would take you to the end of 149. So if he can equal it +1, he could stay out the rest of the way feasibly. And he's got a big gap of almost 10 seconds on Drew Jua right now. Drew, if Tim stays out, Drew would have to be gaining about 7/10 to 8/10 a lap to be able to catch him, which with the tire fall off is possible, but Tim Moore has opened up an opportunity if he decides to stay out. Again, not saying he will, but he has the chance.
Yeah, but the thing, taking a look at it right here, though, at the last couple laps here, it looks like Tim is about a second slower than Drew each lap. Last lap, Drew ran at 31.3. Tim ran at 32.16. So it's very close, but it's meeting that 7/10 that you're talking about. But you're also going to have that tire fall off from Drew. You also have to think back to the beginning of the run, whenever Tim found himself further behind. He was a lap down after coming out through the green flag cycle. He got ahead of Jonathan Amodio, got back on the lead lap, but then he found himself a lap down behind Drew. So how much of that was strategy from Tim to try and save fuel, ride in the draft, not push the car, save the tires to be able to have something for the end? We're 15 to go. He could be in the prime spot to get his first win. Could the strategy play out here?
Yeah, and you got Drew Jua in second, Talmadge in third. The way it worked out, even though they pitted different laps, essentially about the same where they were, about 2.5 seconds separating those two. So really not much change there. Amodio dropped a couple of spots in the cycle. England officially passed him, hang back into the top 5, even with Tim Moore. How about Victor Imbasciani, currently running in 7th place? Not sure if he has to make another stop, but Tim Moore with 14 to go. Right now, 6.5 seconds is the gap. Even if he can't hang on over Drew Jua, I think for points-wise, after whatever happened to him and him losing all those spots, he'd certainly take a second or a third to maintain the points lead. So even if he can't necessarily hang on in front of Drew, he's 15 seconds ahead of 4th place. A podium is in sight if he can stretch it all the way. And like you said, that may have been a strategy call when he was a lap down to kind of save things a little bit and put himself in the best position here to have a car that can be on the track all the way to lap 150.
We'll have to see, though. Taking a look at the laps here over the past couple laps, you can just see how much faster Drew Jua is than Tim Moore, gaining almost a second every single lap. So Drew's going to be knocking on his door within the next couple laps, and unfortunately Tim doesn't have anything for him. And looking across the field, there's not too many battles going on, so if Tim were hoping for a caution, it just doesn't seem like one's going to come out of this race.
Yeah, but the one saving grace for him is, only 12 to go. So, like I said, even if he loses the lead, he's not going to tumble that far, and he's going to probably end up better than 8th place, which was where he would have been based on what happened when he wrecked if he had pitted at that same time with everybody else instead of stretching it out a little bit. As here's Kevin Urguez up to 7th place. Good run for the one car. Has hit the wall a couple of times, but seems to be coming into form a little bit. Someone who's really developed as a VRC driver. Had a great season last year, a bounce back season in his first season back with ORR, and having a good run today in P7.
Yeah, this is a great finish here for him if he manages to hold on to 7th place, because he's currently sitting 10th place in points, so right there on the buffer for playoffs. So if he's able to get a strong finish here, that'll definitely help him maybe move up a spot or just kind of solidify himself there in the top 10 a little bit more. Kyle England currently holding on. He's got Min Hang trying to knock on his door, but Min Hang just can't seem to close that gap. It's about a second, but it's staying about that width there. The closest battle on track, but that just kind of is where it's at right now, sitting about a second apart from each other.
And speaking of a second, that's how close Drew Jua is to Tim Moore right now with under 10 to go. The 4 is going to be there in about a lap from Tim. So how defensive does Tim Moore get? I don't think all that much. They are teammates after all, and he sees the lap times. He knows what's happening. The 4 is very close to assuming that lead.
Yeah, you got teammate Ryan Miniker in between. Is he going to throw the block? No, decides not to. He just lets Drew through.
That was a little trolling. That was a little trolling.
Yeah, and Drew, like you said, elects for the outside line, blows by Tim Moore. So Drew back up to the lead, looking for his 3rd win of the season, our only repeat winner throughout the season. And if there's no caution, looks like he's going to get his 3rd win. Phenomenal season 10 for him so far. And it's still, we're very young in the season, race 8.
Yeah, and this is what Drew Jua has done throughout his career. I mean, he's won the championship 3 times in the VRC. Nobody's ever done that. You also start to look at that all-time wins list a little more. If he is able to take this one, this would be his 40th career stock car win, which would tie him back up with Tim for the 2nd most all-time. In terms of VRC wins, it would extend it to his 36th. No other driver has more than 26 all-time. So Drew Jua really making a statement as the best driver this series has to offer. But Jared Talmadge, in his bounce-back season, continuing to have a nice run with that nice and clean gain entry, and he's running in 3rd place, probably about to get 2nd away from Tim Moore as they come to 6th to go.
Yeah, he's gonna work his way around Victor and Bassiani on the inside, and so he should be, would see, I would think, Tim Moore just give up the position here. No reason to try and fight Talmadge and hold him up. Yeah, he's just gonna let him through. Now the question is Kyle England gonna be able to catch him? It looks like Tim Moore might be able to hold on to the podium here, as long as he doesn't need to come down for fuel, because he's still got about 5 seconds back to the 35.
Yeah, it's about 5 seconds. I don't really think England's going to be able to get there. It might be close, but that's the only one who's probably going to have any shot at catching Tim. So with everything that happened, he'll settle for a third or fourth. I think that's the story for a lot of drivers today, Alex. With the way this race went, especially early, some drivers had some issues. They'll definitely settle for what they end up getting, if they end up getting a good finish. This is someone else who I talked about has really impressed me, Austin Mongold, en route for his best finish in the VRC, having his best race as a VRC driver, the rookie for Gavin Hudspeth Racing, getting around Kevin Reyes to take over 7th place.
Yeah, it was a beautiful move. He worked a late exit there through turn 4, able to carry a lot of speed around the front stretch and gets a beautiful pass around the one of Kevin Yerguez. So finding himself in 7th place, and for the 10, he's a driver really desperate for points to try and make it up to that top 10. So this is a great finish for him to capitalize on a lot of drivers being absent. He's had some decent pace. This is a beautiful spot to be for him. So great run for him as we come around 4 to go.
Yeah, and the driver who's in the best spot as we hit 3 to go is that 4 of Drew Jua, and he sees this pack, he knows who's racing together. What he wants to see is that white flag. We all remember what happened at Charlotte, the very late caution that triggered quintuple overtime. He just wants to see 1 to go and sure up his 3rd win in the VRC this season. And Tim Moore's gap is 2.5 seconds over Kyle England, so it's going to be close, but he might be able to just narrowly hang on to a 3rd place finish, which would mean likely the 1, 2, 3 in points after this race would end up finishing 1, 2, 3.
Now we've got Jonathan West trying to make a move. 2 laps to go. Now's your time if you're going to make a pass. Goes down to the inside. He's going to ride all the way to the bottom as Yerguez elects for the high line. Is it going to be enough for Jonathan to throw the slide? He does. Gets ahead. Yerguez is going to ride him on the bumper as they come down to the apron. Great move from the 79. He's going to try and hold him off, though, as they go into turn 1. Throws a bit of a block. Manages to hold on, but he gets into the wall. Should be able to carry that momentum on exit as we see Drew Jua take the white flag.
Yeah, thankfully for Drew, the white flag, because that just got dicey. But Alex, what a clinic from the 4 car. You know, he started this race, I called him the short run car, the best short run car, but by the end, he is the best car in the field.
Yeah, here he comes around turns 3 and 4. Is going to let Ryan Miniker get his lap back, but he has had a phenomenal run all race. Drew Jua is going to collect his 3rd win of the season here in the VRC.
Garrett Talmadge, even before Drew just slowed down at the start-finish line for no reason, had closed up a decent amount, but Drew Jua, 2nd half of this race, takes over, takes away the halfway bonus from Talmadge, and then last 75 laps, which go green. Surprisingly clean intermediate race here for the VRC. Jua so strong, and some great runs for some other cars. Moore hangs on for P3 and stretches it out. Only guy to go with a 1-stopper there at the end, as I thought. England gets 4th. Min Heng recovers for a top 5. Amodio a good day in 6th. Mongold 7th. And then West in the 2 ORR cars 9th and 10th. But Drew Jua, the story, win number 3 in VRC Season 10, and the 3rd driver ever in OMA stock car history with 40 career wins.
Yeah, you see the 69 getting pushed by Victor and Bassiani there. He ran out of fuel on the in lap, so he timed it just perfectly. But let's go take a look at the final results here. So as you said, Drew Jua, your race winner, 3rd time winner this season, the only one with multiple wins so far in Season 10. Behind him was Jared Talmadge by a 1.5 seconds. Then Tim Moore rounding out the podium. Going behind Tim Moore, Kyle England in 4th place. So close to it again. Just can't seem to manage to find that top 3. Min Heng rounds out your top 5. Then Jonathan Amodio, his best finish of the season in 6th place. Austin Mongold, his best finish in the VRC in 7th. Jonathan West with another strong finish in 8th. Kevin Yerguez in 9th. And Colin Teague rounds out the top 10. Going behind, going to 11th is Andrew Miller. 12th, Victor Imbasciani. 13th, Brad Quall Sr. 14th, Fabricio Lamana. 15th, Ryan Miniker. 16th, Jimmy Amos. 17th, Jordan Martin. And in 18th, Corey Rainey. So we should have drivers ready to come on in for interviews. We'll see if they are waiting here in the booth. And it looks like Drew is here. So Drew, congratulations on winning your 3rd race here this season in the VRC.
Thank you. It was a fun race. I can't lie. You know, we started off really well, and then we got a caution. Decided to try and save a set. Maybe it would help us in the end. And you know, we kind of struggling for some pace. Because Tim and a bunch of other people took tires, decided to kind of short pit, maybe give myself a shot at halfway, and we got that lucky caution. Kyle and Tim were definitely catching me, was able to hold off, and had a little bit of a fun battle with Jared and Tim there. I was really able to make the low lane work every once in a while, and unfortunately we didn't have, you know, the most cars in the field, but with us 3 up there in the front, it was a fun battle getting back to the front after I hit the wall.
Yeah, I will say overall, you guys had a very good run. I mean, it was fun racing all over the entire track. We saw some really good battles, some really good racing. But taking a look at your race, one thing Eddie kept saying in the broadcast was that you had really good short run pace. What adjustments did you make on some of those longer runs that helped you be able to maintain that pace and kind of build that as you went? Because in the first stint, it just seemed like the car really was not working with you too much on the long run.
Yeah, that first run, you know, we were able to save our tires pretty well. We got that caution. I pitted for fuel, only trying to save a set, and we kind of pulled away. And then once those guys, tires behind us, started to get a little bit of advantage, they got me, and we were able to hold on pretty solidly in 3rd place, battling with Jonathan West. But we had a really good long run car, and it was pretty even on the short run. But I felt like once the car started to get a little bit tight, had a little bit more right front than those cars behind me, and that was really what won me this race tonight.
Well, looking forward to next week, we've got some road racing again, this time at Road America. So I have to ask, how familiar are you with Road America and the Cup cars?
So speaking of Road America, I'm like 95% sure, unless the Atlanta Xfinity race gets rained out, that I will not be racing. I'm going to the Atlanta races, and I'll be staying there for the 4th of July-ish type weekend. So I'll definitely gonna try and race, but it's more likely that I won't be racing. It's nice to get my 3rd win, and unfortunately we can't go for a win at Road America, but I will definitely be watching on. I think I'll save a sub for the playoffs, but I'll definitely be watching on, if not racing.
All right, well, before we have you head on out, want to say safe travels for going to Atlanta, but anybody you would like to thank, or any last things you would like to say before you head on out to celebrate your 3rd win?
Yeah, shout out to Team OCM. You know, we were really fast tonight. You know, Kyle ran up front, and I'm pretty sure he would have won halfway if not for that caution. Ryan had some internet troubles, and Tim was as fast as always, and you know, we've really been super consistent as a team this season. And I also want to shout out you and Eddie for broadcasting. I know Eddie doesn't broadcast often, and it's definitely fun to watch back whenever he's in it. So thank you to both, and shout out to all the OMA admins. You know, it's hard to have 5 different series race, and you know, 3 or 4 different nights, and it you know, run perfectly like it is. So shout out to all of them, and hopefully we'll race Road America. If not, you know, I'll be watching, like I said.
All right, well, thanks again, Drew, for joining us here in the booth, and hope you have a good rest of your night. Congratulations on your win again.
Thank you.
All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Eddie, who's going to be talking with our 2nd place finisher here tonight, Jarrett Talmadge.
All right, well, we talked about the different series in the OMA. It's been a great month for Jarrett Talmadge. Got back to his first VRC win 3 weeks ago at New Atlanta, won his first IFC title for Alpha Tauri a couple weeks ago, and now second place finish tonight at Kansas Speedway for Planet Sim Esports. Jarrett, take us through your night. Second place, couldn't get there to Drew, but a good clean run for you.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race. Didn't do a lot of practice for this, so I was just coming there with an open mind, and I didn't have the pace at the start, but found some in the middle, and yeah, Drew Drew had me just by a tenth, man. It's so close the whole run, but it was a really fun race. I'm proud of the run that I put together, and yeah.
And also, you know, I know you were someone who was vocal after the kind of chaos at the end of the old Atlanta race, and we know Charlotte had all those overtimes. I mean, it's got to be pretty refreshing to see a 1.5 mile race go pretty clean for the most part.
Yeah, I was thinking right after we pitted for the final time, I was like, if we get a yellow, I get a chance at Drew. But then I was just like, I'd just much rather not have one and just take my P2 and move on, just because seems every time we get to an end to one of these races, if we get one of those yellows, everybody forgets how to drive and it starts going down. But it was nice to finish one under green, and I don't know how long the green flag run was, but man, we went really long there, and it was nice.
Yeah, 80 laps on the last green flag run to be exact. Jarrett, last question. We mentioned the road course race coming up next. We mentioned who you won the IFC title, and of course, Formula One is all road courses and street circuits, and you've always been a good road racer. So what are you looking at, and how do you feel about Road America next weekend?
Well, don't feel anything because I won't be there.
Oh, well, good to know. We just keep asking people about Road America, and then they're not going to be there. So it's
I'll be on vacation. So.
Well, in that case, enjoy your trip. We'll have you back in a couple of weeks, and congrats on a second place finish.
Thank you.
All right. Well, appreciate Jarrett joining us, and then once the producers, aka Alex, brings them in, we will speak with our third place finisher, Tim Moore, momentarily.
Working on it, but my Discord decided it's not going to cooperate here for a second, so I apologize for the delay on getting Tim up here.
There he is.
We have Tim? There we go.
I dragged the show.
All right. Tim Moore, third place finisher tonight in the VRC. First question, what happened to your car where it kind of just stopped in turn 4 and Kyle England had to take evasive action? We were very confused in the booth, so what happened there?
We locked up pitting. We made a mistake. Okay. And I was trying to go with the short pit strap because I actually, and this is funny, sometimes mistakes become a good thing, but obviously in this case it was also a bad thing. I didn't think that we'd be able to make it on fuel one stopping, so I said, all right, I'm just going to short pit, try to do something different than Drew because I had a little bit of damage. And we tried to get down hard. I honest to God, I braked like where I'd braked the entire race after that first pit stop and so on, and I just locked up the right front, and England had to make evasive action, actually maybe neck coated me a little bit. I felt bad. But that kind of started the cycle for Amodio where he came down the pit. And that actually led to me with like 8 laps of fuel left to end up trying to save. And we ended up doing it, luckily. It just stings a little bit because I told Alex, of course, 2 weeks ago, this is a track that I felt very confident in. I felt like we could win. We led a lot of laps tonight. Had I picked up that I could actually save fuel a lot earlier, and I don't make that dumb mistake entering the pits and don't try to short pit, I probably do win the race. But that's what learning's for. And man, I don't know what else to say. I guess I'll take a top 3. I'm lucky that Drew and Jarrett aren't showing up next week, so there's that. So I guess I have a little bit of I will have a little bit of a points buffer going into a couple races, but I myself are going to be missing a few races down the road as well. So we'll figure it out. But needless to say, I'm real proud of the result. The fact that we turned what could have been a detrimental finish outside the top 10 into a top 3 without a caution. I'll take it.
Yeah, and I mean, you barely made it at the end. We saw Victor pushing you after the checkered flag, so you were able to hang on just enough to complete the 150 laps and salvage a P3. But looking big picture here, Tim, we know a lot of guys have gotten to victory lane. Your teammate Drew has now done that 3 times this season. With as consistent as you've been, how satisfied are you with your performance through the first 2 months of the year? How much do you really gauge winning races at this point? Are you happy with where you're at right now? And how much do you really want to get that first win?
I mean, I really want that first win. I keep on saying in VHS every week when I win, where, it's like, well, I know I've been there the last few weeks, but it's like, hey, I'm winning the wrong races. I really want to win these races. But, I'm just happy I'm being consistent, because when it comes down to the playoffs, if I can maintain a points lead, that's great. That's bonus points that I haven't got because I haven't won a halfway. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, Drew gets 5 bonus points for each one. What is this, his 3rd win, 4th win of the season? I don't even know.
Third.
Third. So technically right now he's matched me, and he's going to get bonus points for wherever he finishes, if he finishes in top 5, which you will in the standings for the regular season. So if I'm going to win a championship, I need to be consistent, and I'm real proud of how consistent I've been to this point in the season. But I've got to start winning races to really start helping my case. And Road America is not going to be my bread and butter next week. I'm going to have fun. Hopefully I can get a top 5. And especially with no Drew, you can try to capitalize a little bit. No Jarrett, guys who were there good last year. So I think Jolene's going to be one to watch. And Eric, of course, who won Watkins Glen. I know he wasn't here this week. As main people along with Min, but overall, I'm just got to keep the nose clean, and I got to keep on doing. But it doesn't really upset me that I'm not winning races. I think it's a testament to how difficult. I know today we had a small field, I think, 18, 16 cars, but it's actually a testament to how talented this group is. And I'm still proud of the fact that we had, 1 caution today throughout the entire thing. So it was a good race overall, and I look forward to how the rest of this regular season goes heading towards the playoffs. October for the final race of the season in Chicagoland is a very, very long time away.
Well, from a near disaster to a podium finish, Tim Moore, OCM Racing, coming home P3 here in the Sportspeak.com 225. Tim, congrats on the run, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, and also congrats to Drew, and thank you guys in the booth. It was awesome listening.
Appreciate it. Alex, back to you.
All right, so we've got just 6 more races left in the regular season. The point standing, it's going to be really interesting to see how it's going to play out next week, and actually the next couple weeks, because as we heard, few drivers not going to be able to make it for Road America. We had drivers not be able to make it tonight for Kansas, and a lot of those are big players when it comes to making the playoffs. So we'll see how things are going to shake up. Tim might be licking his lips a little bit here and hoping to extend his points lead over the next couple weeks. So we'll see how things play out with that. But Road America is definitely going to be an interesting one because it's much different than that of Watkins Glen, Eddie.
Yeah, Road America, the 3 road courses in the regular season, all completely different. Watkins Glen, a high-speed track, a shorter course. Road America, 4 miles, long track, laps over 2 minutes in length. You go with the inclines. You've got the heavy braking zones. You've also got the high-speed parts. You got a lot of Sargento cheese signs everywhere. You've got Canada Corner. It's a crazy track. It's always been one of my favorite tracks to race. VRC's been there a couple of times before. I've had some classic finishes. It's where Tyler McDonald got his last win. It's where Riley Goff got his first win. And now Tim Moore will be looking for his first win of the season. And then you got Long Beach later on too, which is a street course. And I have no idea how that's going to work out. But Road America is going to be a lot of fun. And it, like you said, very different from Watkins Glen. We know some of the players who can run road courses like Eric O'Connor and Min Heng. It was evident when they went to the Glen last month, but who knows? It's a completely different game in Elkhart Lake.
Yeah, I'm hoping, just looking forward to Long Beach. I've never let me try that again. I've never driven Long Beach in the Cup cars. This week was my first week doing Chicago Street Circuit. Doing that in the Cup cars. I don't know if anybody here watching the broadcast has tried that. It's not easy. The car hates the road. I don't know if the road's as bumpy at Long Beach, but I'm hoping it's a lot smoother because it will run right there if it's not as bumpy. But we'll have to wait and see. That's still a while down the road, though.
Yeah, and one last thing, too. I mean, those tracks are so narrow in Long Beach. You know, you've got that roundabout thing about 3 turns into the course. It's crazy. But Road America, at least, you got some width, but we're going to see some great side-by-side battles. The braking, fuel strategy, always a factor at Road America as well. So be sure to tune in next Saturday. That's going to be one to watch.
Yeah, so with all that being said, we want to take a moment to thank all of you again for joining us here at No Name Gaming and Racing Lights Production for the Online Motorsports Association's Virtual Racing Championship, sportspeak.com 225. Congratulations to Drew Jewell for getting his third win of the season in tonight's race. Make sure you join us next week for our second road course of the season, Road America. We hope you all enjoyed the broadcast tonight. I want to thank the OMA for allowing us to bring this race to all of you, and I want to thank you, Eddie, for joining me here in the booth. Be sure to check out Racing Lights Productions over on Twitter at Racing Lights Pro, as well as over on Facebook and Instagram. You can also head over to the YouTube channel to check out any previous broadcasts that you may have missed. I am Alex Light saying goodnight to you from the virtual Kansas Speedway. Thanks again for tuning in.